Her choice is Theme 1. Please start.
Aristotle once said, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." I actually know nothing about him, except for the fact that he was a very famous philosopher. But the reason why I know this quote is that my teacher, when I studied in high school in Canada for 5 months, inserted the quote at the end of every email she sent me. And this is exactly my topic for today, to educate hearts of students. Hello everyone, my name is Akari Uejo. Today, I would like to propose a new type of education, which is introducing emotional intelligence to school curriculum in Japan. But what is emotional intelligence anyway? Emotional intelligence, also known as EQ, refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions, as well as emotions of others. And it has 5 categories, and first one is self-awareness, which is the ability to recognize and understand feelings of ourselves, as well as their effects on others. Next one is self-regulation, which is the ability to control impulses and moods. Third is motivation, which is a passion to pursue goals with energy and persistence. Fourth is empathy, which is the ability to understand feelings of other people. And last one is social skills, which is a proficiency in managing relationships and building networks. Through my studies of sociology and daily observation on the Japanese society, I came to believe that introducing EQ to school curriculum is necessary for the next 2 reasons. First is that EQ could help solve issues such as bullying in school. According to MEC's Ministry of Education, the highest number of bullying in Japan was reported, and the number was 612,000 cases in total. And according to a book called The Science of Bullying, when analyzing how bullying occurs, there are 3 aspects to consider from, such as victims, bystanders, and perpetrators. The reason why I'm explaining those 3 aspects is that not only victims themselves, but also perpetrator and bystanders are affected psychologically by the bullying too, such as high risks of having mental health issues in the future. Therefore, bullying affects all students and needs to be stopped. But if students have self-awareness of EQ, they will be able to identify their emotions and express them properly. And self-regulation helps to cope with their emotions, and students find ways of coping with stress. And if they have empathy, because they understand feelings of other people, they will not start the bullying or might step in when bullying happens. Next one is EQ could improve relationship with others and ourselves. First, let's look at relationship with others. Ligaran Prosperity Index 2020 showed that Japan was ranked 140th on social capital, which includes family and personal relationships, institutional trust, interpersonal trust, social networks, and civic and social engagement. Categories such as living condition and safety were in top 10. However, Japan ranked significantly low on social capital. And next one is relationship with ourselves. According to a survey conducted by Japan Cabinet Office in 2018, only 60% of the Japanese answered they have strengths in themselves, whereas in the US, it was 87%. But if students increase their social skills of EQ, they will get even better at making friends and building connections. And if students increase their self-awareness of EQ, they will be able to find strengths in themselves which could lead to finding a career or school that fits their ability. Now that I talked about why EQ is important, the more important part is how we can make this happen. I am going to explain SEL, social and emotional learning, as an example. SEL is a learning process that enables students to enhance their level of emotional intelligence. The activity allows students to identify and express their emotions by writing down sentences. And this is one of example programs introduced in the US. The activity is that there are Sally and Rebecca, and they're playing with toy. But Rebecca takes away Sally's toy. Sally is very upset. So the content of the activity is that how students can act as Sally and express emotions to others. And according to research, after conducting SEL, not only did it show improvements on things such as reduced stress and improved social behavior, but also 27% of students showed academic performance on improvements too. But how are we going to make this curriculum in Japan? To make this curriculum, I created a collaborative framework that involves all sectors from NPOs, school, university volunteer center, businesses, and the government. The reason why we need to introduce EQ as educational system is that only myself or some other organization implementing the program will not have impacts on society. And by introducing to school curriculum, we can make impacts on the society. And by using the framework, here are 5 steps to introducing EQ to school curriculum. Step 1 is interviewing schools. I think first we need to start by listening. And by school, my plan is to interview parents, teachers, and students. The reason why I included students is that students might know a need in school that adults or researchers don't even notice about. And after step 1 is done, it's time to create curriculum and teacher training programs. I am currently interning at educational nonprofit, and there is an employee who was a former elementary school teacher. And he taught me about the current guidelines of school, and its contents were great. But the issue is that how to foster those skills in classrooms is actually difficult. And I know that teachers in Japan are extremely busy. So creating curriculum and teacher training programs to reduce the amount of work for teachers is necessary. And after step 2 is done, we conduct pilot project in classrooms of grade 5 and 6 in actual elementary schools. And pilot project is that we send students who wish to become teachers or students who are interning or volunteering in educational field take trainings by using curriculum. And after that, we send them to the actual classrooms to see what the impact and outcome will look like. After pilot is done, investments need to be collected from businesses and the government. And after step 4 is done, it's finally time to create curriculum and teacher training programs for the actual system. The reason why we need to focus on EQ is that not only does it have positive effects on the individual, but also it has society impacts. I hope you understand the concept of EQ and its importance and my idea. Thank you so much for listening.
Now we're going to question and answers from the judges. Judges, please.
Thank you so much, Shigeru Miyaga from MIT. That was a fascinating presentation. I loved the way you opened up your presentation with that quote from Aristotle, that you have to educate the entire person and not just the mind. And I agree with that very much. and you followed through with a very interesting observations, this emotional intelligence. Just a quick question about that, emotional intelligence. Are you familiar with Howard Gardner's work on this emotional intelligence?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
Yes, there is a professor at Harvard named Howard Gardner who has worked on this.
Yes.
Are you drawing from his work, or is this something that you thought up yourself?
Yes, I used two of his books called EQ and also Focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it sounded like his work.
Yeah.
You mentioned that social capital for Japan is 140th.
Yes.
So I would like to know why Japan is ranked so high in education and in other categories, but with social capital, it's so low. I just want to make sure that I understand. I'd like for you to explain that to me. And how does teaching about emotional intelligence help with this social capital for Japan?
Thank you. I think that is a very difficult question to answer. However, I think one of the reasons why Japan is ranked low in social capital is that Japan is economically one of the top countries in the world, and because there's and I think the economy affects the education as well, and because we need to be competitive in order to survive the economy. Therefore, the education gets competitive, and as a result, the society as a whole focus so much on competition and not connection with others. And I believe that we need to value things such as cooperating with others. And I think by using EQ, if we introduce those curriculum early, if the benefits of EQ can be used in business fields as well. For example, in Japan, there are challenges in business, such as innovation and efficiency. However, by using social skills of EQ, people who took the education of EQ, when they become adult, they can use the quality in workplaces too. And in terms of efficiency, if one's motivated towards goals, I think that quality can be utilized in business fields as well.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Sure.
In order to formulate this EQ curriculum, you mentioned a very impressive network of schools, NPOs, and so forth. The one thing that I found missing was family and home. And it seems to me that a lot of the skills for EQ is nurtured within the family, particularly with parents. I'm wondering why family was not an equal partner with NPOs and schools.
Yes, thank you for your question. I completely agree with your view that families should be included in EQ education as well. In fact, SCL, the education system conducted in the US, includes family and community too. So I feel that we definitely need to include family aspects as well. But in order to get family involved to the process, as I mentioned in step 1, we first need to interview parents and to see what needs do they have in cultivating those skills in classrooms. Therefore, although it's included in the whole process, the main structure should be NPOs, schools, university volunteer center, and businesses and government. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. We have one more question from our second judge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I know much less about this subject than your last questioner, I'm afraid. A very stupid question. What is social capital?
Social capital means a connection between others, and connection also it includes civic engagements as well. So it shows how much people are engaged in building community as well.
Well, when I look at the US is quite high and Japan's quite low, but living in Japan, it would seem the other way around. That many of the things you talk about in EQ, Japanese people seem quite high. And so why this difference in your view?
I think that as we can see, for example, the voter turnout in Japan is very low. And I think that while Japan is so good at cooperating with others and collaborating with others, I think we need a little bit work on acknowledging our emotions and express them to others. Therefore, I think difference is that in Japan, we need to focus more on acknowledging our own emotions and expressing them to others.
Okay, finally, one more practical issue. Japanese kids are in school all the time. The curriculum is packed. If you're going to add something, what do you propose dropping?
I haven't actually thought about that. But what I know is that currently the Japanese government is trying to promote active learning. And I think rather than dropping some of the project, we can incorporate SEL into active learning. But we need, so to reduce the amount of the curriculum as much as possible, the best way of introducing SEL is to introduce those curriculum into the actual classroom rather than creating a whole another subject. Therefore, from now on, I will work on researching more about the Japanese systems and how we can incorporate into the current curriculum.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, judges. Now let's go to the audience. I have many questions, but one we are going to ask today is, how do children acknowledge or know the growth of their EQ from SEL classes?
That's a very good question. I think that because Japanese society focuses too much on fitting in, they sometimes don't know how to express their emotions and express their opinions in class. So one way of figuring out the improvement on students is that by teaching the curriculum, they can know, for example, in class discussions, if they if they didn't, they hesitated answering the questions or having discussion with others. But by introducing education, I think they will be able to know that if they can express their emotions in classroom discussions, I think that's one of the signs that the EQ of students increased. Yeah.
Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
ありがとうございました。